You are
For
unforgettable.
sure. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Hunter. I am a USA Today and international best-selling author of romance and fantasy.
What type of what inspired the Shadowlands series in particular Broken Veil?
So, my best-known series, the Elemental Mysteries, the Aaron Chronicles, are more contemporary fantasy, and so they take place in the modern world, where there's magic infused into the real world. You kind of have like secret societies and things like that. But when I was growing up, I was a hardcore fantasy reader. I absolutely loved I mean, all of them. Tolkien, Lewis, obviously, George MacDonald, Ursula Le Guin, Madeleine L'Engle. I'm so sorry.
Good.
Um, but uh, but uh, but I had never really been able to incorporate a lot of that kind of more high fantasy elements into my work. So for me, it was really, really fun to write this series, which is a portal fantasy series. So it starts in the modern world. It's incorporated. The modern world is very much incorporated into it. The heroine comes from Northern California. She was born in Wales, but grew up in Northern California. And then she walks through, her boyfriend goes missing, very strange. She goes back to Scotland, where he's from, try and find out what's going on from his family, and walks through a Fey gate into an entirely different world. So I got to play around with all my dragons, all my kelpies and fantasies and fae and myths are all real in this kind of mirror world. And there's also doppelgangers. So everyone in our world has
Yeah.
a twin in this fantasy world. So it really incorporated my love of contemporary fantasy and then with the high fantasy elements that are just absolutely my favorite.
Did you find your writing process different from writing the contemporary fantasy compared to now shifting to the high fantasy?
There were definite differences. But I do a lot of research for any of my books because they tend to be very international. So I do travel, but inevitably there's a lot of research that I have to do. So I still had to do a lot of research on kind of I want to on mostly myths, folklore, legends, things like that. I wanted there to be like a very kind of I don't want to say grittier, but like I feel like a lot of Fey mythology in romantic fantasy now tends to be like a little bit softer. And when you look at the original Fey myths, like they're very gritty, they're very violent and dark. And so I wanted these to feel a little bit grittier. And so I did a lot of research and I did some specific research into the different Fey mythologies of Great Britain, specifically Wales, where my heroine is from. So the first book takes place primarily in Scotland, because that's where her boyfriend who disappeared uh, goes through the portal. That's where he's from. Um, but her family is from Wales, and so fine, and which my dad is as well. Or my dad's family is Welsh, so like obviously I had to incorporate that, and there's dragons, and like if you're gonna have dragons, they have to be Welsh, right?
You need the Welsh dragons.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, so there was a lot of research, but it was so I got to study some kind of specific myths and folklore that I think are not as popular, and incorporate some of those and kind of find the ties between different world mythologies. So that was really fun.
I think people forget like when you're writing fantasy that there is still research that you have to have to
So
do as
much,
well.
yeah.
It's
Like
like you
you
can
can
make it
make up
up
a
for the
lot
world.
for
Make up the
sure.
world, it's all fine. No, it's like you actually have to research.
It's all just pretend, right? Yeah, but if you want it to feel grounded, and I think like so my Aaron Chronicles series, which is one of my most popular series, is based on Nephilim and angel mythology. So lot like so even though that's contemporary fantasy, urban fantasy, I still wanted it to feel very grounded in the real life myths, because we're all just playing in those
Yeah.
mythological frameworks, right? We're playing in sandboxes that were built thousands of years ago.
What drew you to writing in the first place? Did you always know you wanted to be an author?
I didn't actually. I was an avid reader my entire life. I was an avid reader, and then I did business writing, but I didn't start writing for fun until I was in my 30s. And it was really just genuinely like I was bored and I started reading fan fiction, and then I started writing fan fiction because I was like, I could probably do this.
Yeah.
And it was really just like a fun release kind of deal. And then when I decided I wanted to write my own stories, at that point I had created like three or four large fan fiction works. And so the idea of writing a novel of my own didn't seem quite so intimidating. So I was like, I could do that. I've already done it, kind of. So, and so it just became a way for me to relax, to play around in kind of the fictional worlds, some of which had always been, because my first series was vampires. I love vampires. I have read so many vampire books. They are my absolute favorites. So to me, like writing my own vampire books, like that was just fun.
Yeah.
And it's still my most fun thing. Like people ask me all the time, is like, how do you write so fast? I'm like, that's my fun thing. The other stuff, the advertising, the promotion, and like all of that stuff, the business and bookkeeping, but all of that stuff is the not fun part. But the writing part, that's
The fun.
that's super fun.
I think fan fiction is like a good, nice little stepping stone because like you already know all the characters, you've read the
Oh,
books and everything, and then you
absolutely.
can just write then step to you making your own characters come to life as well, which is the best
Yes,
thing.
absolutely. Because I think most readers have been there where they think up like a story or a character in their head. And for me, it was my first series was very much based on a character that kind of grew in my own mind. Um, because really from one question, like, right, I love vampire books, right? So if I was a vampire, the idea of living forever, like, what would I even do? Like, how would you keep from getting bored
Yeah.
if you're a vampire? And I'm like, I would just read. I would,
Live in the library.
possibly finish my TBR, right? Like, I could read for eternity. Like, one, there's a lot of books out there, and two, they're always writing more.
Yeah.
So,
Never get
yeah,
bored.
I would never get bored. Yeah. And so the first character I wrote about was a vampire whose life revolved around books, and he is like a book detective, and um so yeah, so and that was a hidden fire, and that was 14 years ago. Yeah,
Wow.
14 years ago. So, and that grew into my biggest series, actually. That's the Elemental Universe. But yeah, I didn't start writing until my 30s, and but you're right. Fan fiction is a great place to start because for two reasons. One, the anonymity I think is so good for young writers because it lets you just be very free and experimental. And two, fan fiction readers can be really hardcore.
Yeah,
And like
definitely.
you will get the worst reviews of your entire life. Like you will feel absolutely crushed by the opinions of somebody who like if you did something mean to one of their favorite characters,
Yeah.
there is no review I have ever gotten on Goodreads that is harsher than some of what people wrote to me when I was writing fan fiction. Like, so it toughens you up. It's good. It's good experience.
They're very opinionated. Very.
For sure. 100%.
What's your approach to world and character building? How do you go about creating your worlds and your characters?
To me, I am very character driven. So usually I come up with the characters first, and then the world kind of grows from that. For this book, Broken Veil, and for the whole series, which started with First Light, it was a little bit more world driven. I had the idea for this parallel dimension, and then I thought, okay, well, who would be the best person to enter this dimension? And so I came up with Karis, who is the main character of the trilogy. She is a mythology professor. So I figured like, right, she's going to be so well equipped for this world. But then like as I'm building the world, very organically, I'm planning, okay, who's she going to meet? And then I started imagining the history of this world. And I'm like, okay, well, but it's not going to be exactly
Hmm.
what she knows, right? She's got to
Yeah.
have learned from books when this is really an entire new living world and culture and all of that. So it's kind of branched off long ago. So there are elements of what she knows, but then there are also elements of things that she never expected. And so to me, that's what a world is. It's layering, it's thinking about the history, and for every kind of magical thing that happens, there needs to be an evolution, there needs to be a reason, there needs to be geographical reasons, language reasons. For instance, the kingdoms in this shadow Britain and Ireland, they have never united. There was never any colonization or anything like that. And so you have four very distinct cultures, really kind of five, that have developed and thrived, and they've kind of kept each other in check. And of course, nobody messes with Wales
Yeah.
because they have dragons.
Yep.
So
Enough reasons. Fair enough reasons. You don't want to mess
yeah,
with the values.
exactly. They've got mountains and dragons. You're not going to mess with those guys.
Did you have a favorite moment in the series to write?
Oh my gosh, so many. I think so many. But I think one of the first ones is in First Light, the very first time she goes through that portal, which is just this passage, this very dark passage in the woods, and she has a Fae guide. She has her boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, we're not sure, his doppelganger, his twin brother, is a very grumpy Scottish blacksmith, because every story is better when you have a grumpy Scottish blacksmith.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
and he is like leading her through this. They have a Fae guide, and it's just very like claustrophobic. And this was very much one of those moments in when I was building the world and building the story that was very vivid in my mind. And so I wanted it to be very visceral and very sensory rich. And so that was definitely fun to write.
You always need that sensory and the grumpy
Yeah.
characters are the best.
Yeah,
They're
but
the
like
best.
the sounds and the smells, and
Yeah.
I would just wanted readers to feel like they were walking through that dark, dark forest and hearing like these scary clicking things in the distance, and yeah. So I wanted the creep factor to be there, but also just that relentless drive of curiosity too.
Has writing and publishing books changed the way you perceive yourself?
I don't think so. I haven't thought about that too much. Um, I think if anything, the writing, I don't think has changed me. I think I always lived in my head quite a lot as an introvert and as a reader. I was always kind of,
Yeah.
thinking about other things, a bit distractible. I think if anything, like having to be online so much,
Yeah.
that has changed me. That's created kind of like a bit of exhaustion sometimes with online life. I think most writers and most creators and artists can relate to that. And
It's
even readers too. I think readers can as well.
it's definitely different because if you're wanting to share and promote and everything, you have to be online and you just get exhausted.
And the
Uh,
self-promotion is very awkward. Like it does really feel like you're kind of flashing someone and saying, like, look at me. And it's not my natural nature. In fact, I think my mom was the one who pointed out one time I was, when I was writing my first books, I was a single mom, and so I was taking my son to school. And she was saying, people keep asking me at the school, people keep asking me what you do for work. It's like, what do you want me to tell them? And I said, I don't know, just tell them I'm a writer, but be vague because I
Yeah.
don't want to ask you about it. And my books aren't even particularly like there's spice. I write kind of medium spice. They're not anything I would say pretty standard for romance and fantasy. If you like Nora Roberts, if you like, that kind of that's I grew up reading Nora Roberts, so that's kind of my scale. It's kind of hard to like, is this more or less spicy than Nora? And I think I'm about for most of my books, I'm about there, about in the it kind of hit in the middle. So it's not that I'm embarrassed to like let anyone know what I do. It's more just like there's professional life and there's real life and like
Yeah,
yeah,
separate.
it is a bit odd. It's a bit awkward, yeah.
What advice would you give to a writer working on their first book? And if you were give it any advice?
I think when you're writing your first book, I am very much a planner.
Yeah.
So I write down everything. I like to do a lot of outlines, but I think when you're thinking about like your first book, I would actually tell people spend quite a bit of time with the story in your head before you start writing things down.
Yeah.
Let it just let yourself think about the idea and the mythology and the characters a lot
Mm.
before you start writing things down because the ideas that last are the ones that you're going to be motivated to write. Because I get lots of book ideas like flitting through my head all the time, and I don't write them down. I know a lot of people is like, just carry a notebook with you and write down. I don't do that because there would be too many. I think the ones that are really persistent, those ideas that are really persistent, those are the ones that are going to be really motivating for me to write. And as long as it's living in my head, it's very fluid. There's a lot of creative freedom there. And once I start writing it down, I feel like I've kind of committed, right? I feel like my main character is going to be like this, or this creature is going to be like this. Once I write it down, it feels a little bit permanent. As long as it's living in my head, it can be quite fluid and I can change my mind a lot. Once you are ready for that, for that point, I always tell young writers the best thing you can do for your story is to really get to know your main characters. Like you
Mm.
should really know them, spend time with them, interrogate them in a way, ask questions so that you know this person from all angles. You know the best thing that they've ever done, you know the worst thing that they've ever done. You know what they're scared of, you know what makes them happy, you know what depresses them. Spend time with your characters because readers love a really thrilling plot, but they get invested in character.
You
That's
always
the
remember the
connection.
character. You'll
Yeah, that's
always
the
remember your
connection.
favorite character.
Absolutely. And that's the connection. That is that empathy and building that character so that, anytime a reader comes to me and said, I feel like when I read your books, especially like in one of your big series, or if I'm rereading, I feel like I'm hanging out with friends. Like that is what I want because I want those characters to feel like people you could really know.
You're gonna keep picking up the book no matter what, if you're
Yeah,
invested
because
in
you
the
have to
character.
know.
Yeah.
Even if you're mad at me for doing something mean to
I'll
your
come back
favorite
to the
character,
characters.
like you gotta keep reading because you're invested in this pretend person, but they feel real and I get that. Like that tells me I'm doing my job right.
Definitely. Do you have a favorite writing snack or drink?
Oh gosh, coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah, coffee for sure. I have to have my coffee, but people ask me all the time, it's like coffee or tea. I'm like, really both. I love both of them, but my first love is coffee for sure. My husband is from Ethiopia, so we're quite coffee snobbish around here because he makes incredible coffee. He roasts it fresh. He adds like spices. which I'm not allowed to tell his secret. No, it's cloves. Yeah, it's cloves when he's roasting the spices and then grinds it together. I have another Ethiopian friend. She adds cinnamon to her coffee, which is also amazing. But yeah, the coffee for sure. As far as snacks go, I do actually have a favorite snack because, and it's like it's such a specific, oddly like specific reason. I love raw or lightly roasted almonds.
They're good.
I live in an almond growing area of California, so we have a lot of almonds around us, so it's very easy to get like good fresh almonds. And then like I don't like having things on my fingers, right? If I'm typing, I don't want to have anything like salty. So I like the raw almonds or the lightly roasted almonds because like I can snack on them if I'm hungry and I don't get stuff on my fingers.
You don't need you don't need anything on the fingers when you're typing
Exactly.
at
Yeah.
all. Just a
No chip
processing.
crumbs or anything.
Do you listen to music while you write? And if you have
Actually,
any issues?
yes, I listen to a lot of music. That's a big part of my writing process. Every book that I write, I create a different playlist for, and that's kind of one of my tricks to kind of flip me into writing mode. So before the playlist is actually one of the first things that I put together when I'm outlining a book, and they're not necessarily like direct correlations. This song goes with this scene. It's more mood type, right? I want to get myself into the mental headspace. And so the whole time I'm planning the book, the whole time I'm outlining the book, I'm listening to this same playlist, which makes like those end of year wrap up things very funny
Yeah.
sometimes. Because for this book, like when I was writing it, I was listening to the theme to Pan's Labyrinth,
Oh
which
yeah.
is favorite Guillermo del Toro song. And it's like this very kind of haunting melody, but it's the sound of her walking through that forest the first time. So it's the beginning of the playlist for this entire series. And so like it's like your most played song this year was that's for work, but okay. It's beautiful, beautiful music. But yeah, I tend to listen to to a playlist on repeat when I'm writing.
Music always sets the mood and helps.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And it is a really like if you are, I mean, everyone has a lot going on in their life,
Mm.
right? Everyone gets distracted. So it can be really hard to focus. Especially if you're like me and you're 48 and you know, perimenopause is the whole of your brain. Um, Getting that focus is becomes progressively harder. And so having a playlist like that really it's an extraordinarily big help for me personally.
I think everyone sort of needs something in the background, depending on the
Yeah.
person, to get you into the mood to read and everything as well. So it always helps, no matter what.
And okay, this is wild. Right before this book came out, um, Hosier's Unreal Unearth
Oh yeah.
album dropped. And what was the name of one of the tracks on it was First Light.
That's
So I was
amazing.
like, oh my God, it's fate. So that like the through the whole editing process of that, like I was listening to that one on repeat constantly and for the rest of the series. It was like it's perfect because it's like mysterious and very literary and also romantic and but dark and has this humor. And I felt like that really it contributed a lot to the series and the feel of the series overall.
Matched perfectly, really.
Yeah. Seriously, it really did. I was like, what? It's called there's and it's one of my favorite songs on the album too. So it was genuinely like kismet.
Definitely. And my final question is, who has been the biggest supporter of your writing?
Oh, I mean, I'm immediately going to say my husband because he is my coffee.
Yeah.
He is my coffee provider. Uh, and he makes sure I like, you know, walk around and am not glued to the chair and eat actual food. But I would also say my sister is my sister is my assistant and she is an enormous help and she kind of keeps my life running when I am off in fairy and vampire and angel land. So yeah, she kind of keeps the world spinning. So between my husband and my sister, they kind of keep the world going. And I could not do this without them.
You definitely need the help with the coffee. You can't go wrong with
Yes, yeah, like, I would be lost. I have an espresso machine, but it's not
not
anywhere
the same.
close to my husband's coffee.
Not the same. You
No,
do need the
not
people closest to you though to help and cheer you through. Definitely.
absolutely. Absolutely.